Welcome to TORAH Talk. I am your host, wil'Liam Hall, broadcasting live out of Kingsland, Texas, USA, with another episode of Controversial Issues with Crazy Rabbi Chaim Coiffman from the Holy Land. Rabbi, welcome back to the show, my dear friend. It's good to have you back, sir. I hope you're doing well. I know that I am doing very well. If you look at my hands, I'm like a spider, like an octopus going all crazy spider. My arms are crisscrossing everywhere. I've had some issues in the last couple episodes with some sounds of the guests being garbled. I think I might have fixed that tonight. So rather than you blowing up my system, perhaps you will have helped me fix it this time. That would be a nice.
Let's hope.
That would be a nice payback. So welcome
to
the show.
No guarantees on that one.
Yeah, we're going to find out. So we'll just, granted, the system might still have issues with you. I don't know why it doesn't like you much, but that's okay though. Unbelievable. Well, this is my store, and I do shop here, so I care about the... That's probably one only me and you will get, but it's okay. All right, very good. So, so tonight's topic, this is episode 14, am I correct?
You are correct.
14, and tonight's show is going to be called, basically, Circumcision and Self-Mutilation. Thought that was forbidden. Okay, so there's a lot of questions about it. There's a really neat concept that I heard one of the Chabad rabbis say one time, and I think I've actually heard several rabbis mention the general idea. The whole idea is, didn't God create us in His image already? Why do we have to change things? But then again, it's like, and I know I think I even heard you say something about it once. Like whenever we have, wheat can't just be picked off and eaten. You have to crush it. You've got to do things to it. You have to change it so it's consumable. So I thought wheat was perfect. Well, it is, but you still have to do things to make it usable. So with that said, it's kind of like, this is going to be an interesting topic for the night. So with that being said, Rabbi, your screen just kind of went, there you go. Are you switching screens? Yeah. I thought you like the Holy Ghost disappeared or something. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so I've got the phone lines open just to let everybody know. I will put that number on your screen. Give me 1 second here. And yeah, I think this whole thing, once I got the new computer, just to double back, I couldn't remember because I've got 3 computers and there's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 monitors, 3 mice, 3 keyboards, soundboard, and I couldn't remember. We were off for a month, so I couldn't remember which computer I had Skype on, and I think because I had it on the wrong computer, it was looping in a way that was, I don't know, it was just really weird. So we're going to find out if that fixes. If it does, wonderful. Okay, so without further ado, let's get kicked off, and let's start talking about circumcision. The one thing that will.
All right, just don't turn me green, whatever you do. But
yeah, all right.
All right, welcome everyone. Everyone would agree that when we look at the human body, there's one piece. Well, actually, except for the appendix, no one's quite figured out. I don't think what the appendix is for, except when it ruptures, you have to have it out. Hey, I needed that. Oops.
It's like a trash can. Once it gets full, you got to take it out.
We're going to take it out anyway. So. The appendix they have, they might not have quite figured out, what that's for. But everybody will agree that when circumcision is done, the foreskin, has no purpose except for one, right? The foreskin, the only purpose is to take it off. Now, there is a difference of opinion among doctors every number of years. And that is, if you take it off, is it good against cancer? Is it not good against cancer? So there's always this, disagreement, every so often whether it should be done, it shouldn't be done. It's good medically. It's not good medically. But everyone agrees, that, if you take it off, it's not something, that's needed. Certainly not something that's needed in the body. So the major question, will be why in the world, why in the world do you have this command? I mean, the Torah says clear that, you're not supposed to, wound yourself. And in Parsha's Mishpatim, where it talks about all the laws of, damage, you certainly can't cause damage to someone else. All the more so, you're not allowed to cause damage to yourself, right? If if you can't damage someone else, well,
Right.
I guess you can't do it. I guess you can't do it to yourself. So circumcision, in general, is certainly a sign on the body, certainly of a Jew, that distinguishes Jews from the other nations. There are a few things that are a sign for the sake of the Jewish people that distinguish us. One of them is circumcision. One of them is the laws of Shabbos, right? Keeping Shabbos, that distinguishes the Jewish people, right? And wearing tefillin, right? Or phylacteries. I'm not even sure what phylacteries are, but, Jewish men wear, these black boxes on their, on their arm, on their head, etc. It's also considered a sign. So why do we need specific signs? One, main reason is that we distinguish ourselves from everybody else. We don't want to be the same, and that's exactly what the anti-Semites will say against the Jewish people. Look, they're different. They don't keep the same laws. They don't eat the same food, right? Kasher is another good,
right,
example. We passed through Purim a little less than a month ago, or a few weeks ago, and on Purim, when you read the book of Esther, Haman, Mr. Haman himself, comes to Achashverosh and say, look at these people, they're different. They don't eat the same foods. They, you touch the wine, it's got spiritual cooties. They won't even drink it. So, they are different. Exactly what the anti-Semites say. But at the same time, the Torah says, and I'll paraphrase here, God says, I don't care. This is what you have to do, to distinguish yourself from everybody else. So, on the body, that is a way, to do it. So again, everyone will agree, what is the purpose of the foreskin? One purpose, take it off. That's it, right? That is the only, purpose. So you dig a little bit deeper. So that means that a person's born not whole, right? Certainly not complete. Rather, we have to take this off. We have to perfect ourselves, in physical terms. Now, people may say, well, it's a little bit of a strange thing. It says in Parsha's Tazria, in the book of Leviticus, the beginning of the Parsha, it says 8 days. 8 days. When you have a male child, you have to take off. You have to do circumcision, even though the mitzvah was given to Avraham, right? The mitzvah was given to him, but there were certain things added later for circumcision as well. That's why it's given a second time. So the child, as long as everything's good, that they are, the child's not yellow, and it would be considered a danger, if the child is yellow, in order to do the circumcision. But if that passes, or there is no issue, so on the 8th day, that is what is, that's what's done. It's also brought down that a person who had slaves, also the slaves had to be circumcised. And, the difference between, let's say, a slave, and a child, what happens if the 8th day comes out on Shabbos? If the 8th day, when the baby's born, comes out on Shabbos, you do the circumcision on Shabbos because it supersedes Shabbos. Why? Very simply, the Torah says it's got to be done on the 8th day. If the 8th day is the festival, same thing. You're allowed to do it, even though you're really not allowed to draw blood, certainly on Shabbos. Again, if it's, life-threatening or something like that, person's in the hospital, so that's, something else. But here you're going to draw blood. And drawing blood, you're making a wound, right? So that shouldn't be allowed on a festival. Certainly shouldn't be allowed, on Shabbos. But, of course, there's always a but. And the but is that the Torah says you do it on the 8th day. So it doesn't matter when the 8th day comes. If it comes on Shabbos, you still do it. So, there are a few differences, on Shabbos, because really the knife, you're not allowed to use, you're not allowed to move. So you got to put it in a, a specific place, and then you bring it, whatever. It's the whole, the whole thing exactly. What you're allowed to do with the knife right after the circumcision, because it's got no usage as well afterwards. So it's got that status of a category where, I have something that has a forbidden usage now because it's a knife. It's a knife for, I'm not talking about a knife, cutting chicken or meat or whatever. Here it's a knife in general that I have no usage for, so I shouldn't be able to move it even after, the circumcision. But obviously, if you don't want, anyone, any kids coming in contact with it, etc. So you are allowed to move it for the sake of, for the sake of danger. So so what you have is you have a divine command, and the divine command is to show and distinguish that the Jewish people are different. Now, you come up with another sort of a wrench or maybe a complication, and the complication is, so isn't this self-mutilation, right? You are making a wound, certainly on the body. Now, if there's a divine command, and there is no difference of opinion here, so all the Karaites out there will be, will certainly be excited, and that is that when it says circumcise your child on the 8th day, that's it. There is no other room for interpretation. On the 8th day means on the 8th day, right? So that is done. So you say, but is God forbid a masochist? He wants us to, he wants us to draw blood. Now, if you go and you look at history, and we go back in time, so you see there are certain mitzvahs that even secular Jews, as secular as they may be, they will do as well, right? One of them is circumcision, and one of them also, coming up, close to Passover. So, most people have a Passover Seder as well. But the Talmud says clear that circumcision, is something that was extremely valuable to the Jewish people. It was something that, they were willing to give up their life for, and something that, a Jew is willing to give up their life for, is something that's going to be passed down generation to generation. So therefore, since it was such an important thing, and people seemingly did it under even the most dire of circumstances. Certainly, in Russia was against the law, and people could have been thrown in jail, and everything else. At the same time, they were willing, to do it in secret in order that, this Jew should, this child should enter the covenant. So that's pretty, it's a pretty amazing thing, because, most Jews today, they end up doing circumcision on their, child, even as secular as they are. Now, I can think of a lot of things, that people may want to do, and that, you could pass it down to the generations. Hanukkah is a good thing. People like Hanukkah lights also. Doesn't, it's not an expensive, mitzvah. It gives people pride. People have a Passover Seder. Okay, they don't, as people say, well, we don't do it like you, but, they have a Seder, they eat a little bit of matzah, drink some wine, have a good time, etc. And that's it.
Rabbi, let me interrupt you for a second. I'm trying to, and I'm going to try to do this all now. I'm going to try to follow along with the YouTube chat. But the thing is, which means I'm going to have to derail you fairly often, because if I don't, I'm not going to be able to get these inserts in. Someone wants to know, in your descriptive time with the circumcision, can you briefly discuss why people bury the foreskin? I've never heard of that. Mainly because I just. But if you would,
the purpose is a good question. I'm not sure exactly why. They actually bury it in dirt as well. It's not just. I'm not sure. I'm not sure exactly what. I know there is a reason. I don't remember exactly what the reason it is that it is buried.
Gotcha. Okay.
That's a good question. I'm not. What do you call it? It could be, maybe it's similar to the sense of. Well, actually, it's not the same. A person cuts their fingernails, right? So when a person cuts their fingernails, it's brought down. Either you bury them or you burn them, or like today, most people don't bury or burn them; they just flush them down the toilet. So there is a thing that's something that's connected to the skin. It's connected to the body. That when you cut it off, it gets buried. I mean, obviously, if you have someone say, well, what if my finger got cut off, right? A limb that got, cut off or whatever. So God forbid, when a person dies, you get buried with that, because the entire body has to go back in the ground.
Would they do that with hair also?
No, when hair gets cut, you don't bury it. It just, they just sweep it up and throw it away.
Right, but I mean, if it's a concept of coming from your body, in a sense of growth.
I'm saying it's not necessarily by hair. It's only by fingernails. Fingernails or toenails. It's not by anything. It's not by hair.
Okay.
That's the only thing. It's a good point. It's only by like I said, fingernails or toenails. I'm not sure that it's the same. It's the same. Same connection. I do think it's it is there is some Kabbalistic thing that is involved.
Okay.
With that, not 100% sure.
Okay, got it. Thank you. All right, carry
on. Yeah. So so this idea, of doing it, on that day. Now it supersedes Shabbos. It supersedes a festival, and then you have the question. How could God allow such a thing? Right? Everything else is forbidden. Right? Self-mutilation in general. Person, let's say, for example, a person gets a tattoo. Right? A lot of people have tattoos. Now, the Torah prohibition of having a tattoo is because it was if you had a tattoo that had, for idolatry. Right? That was a Torah prohibition. At the same time, any other type of tattoo that's done on the skin, right? Doesn't matter what it is, it'll be a rabbinic prohibition. And once a person does it, it's forbidden. It's not something where every second it's there, it's going to be forbidden. Once it's done, it's done. So the question about taking it off. Now, just as a short side point, taking it off, you can take it off today by laser, right? The kind of it's not a easy procedure, but it certainly can be done, by laser. And there is a question that used to be that when it was taken off, it made a wound in the skin, right? So laser, I don't think makes a wound today in the skin. The question would be if it does. Let's say it does make a wound. If it does make a wound, then you're over at least the rabbinic prohibition at best. I'm sorry, at worst. By taking it off because you're making a wound. So I've heard brought down that someone who has that on them, better to be over a rabbinic prohibition than have that thing on your body. Now, I do know that here in Israel, I don't know if it's that way in the States or, any other place, but if someone had a tattoo and, and they died before they are buried, there's something that's put on the skin that takes it off. So I remember. So my son actually told me this because he had a Rebbe of his that was part of the volunteered for the Chevra Kadisha for the Jewish Burial Society, and he'd watch the body, etc. And that's what and he said. So he's telling my son or my son's class that that's what they that's what was done. So I never saw it brought down. I looked it up. I looked around. I hunted for it. I didn't see it brought down. So, so I asked my Rebbe about it, and he said an interesting thing. He said, yeah. He said, of course, that's what's done. He said, imagine a person gets upstairs after 120 years, and they're going to get judged, for what they did in this world. Imagine you got this Tasmanian devil or whatever tattoo, that you have on your body. My Rebbe said, you think you want that upstairs? No, we burn it off. We get... they use some sort of, I don't know what it is, whatever it is that they use to get it off, they take it off, and then the person is, the person is buried.
Now, I do have a question for you on that specific point.
Yeah.
So basically what I have heard from other rabbis is like, you get a tattoo, that's getting a marking in your flesh. You get a tattoo taken off, you're getting another marking in your flesh. So the point being this, I had a friend once tell me, in fact, my friend I'm going to go see in Dallas, I said, man, I'm really bothered with my tattoos. I was like, whatever. And he goes, it's okay to have a tattoo. And I'm like, this is like Orthodox Jew. I'm like, excuse me, what do you mean it's okay to have one? He goes, yeah, you just not okay to get one. And I was like, wait a minute. I had to think about that for a minute. I said, okay, good. So as he explained it he says getting one means future tense. If you had one in the past, well, that is what it is. But if you can't choose to get one. And then we've known a few people who've had them removed, and that causes more marks in their flesh trying to get it taken off. So
right. The question is it a good thing, even if you make a wound in the flesh, right, to get rid of it? So there is a difference of opinion, and there are those that hold, 100% you should get rid of it. I did hear one story, and I'll just mention this.
Yeah, sure.
Because you because you always got to be careful where you get information from. Someone who had a tattoo had said that there was an Orthodox rabbi that told them you shouldn't take it off. Not the issue of whether it makes a wound, it doesn't make a wound, but this, supposed Orthodox rabbi said, you know what? You shouldn't have, you should leave it on because it's like a red badge of courage. Now, if the person said it, which I can't even imagine, but you know what they say, everything said shouldn't be written, not everything written should certainly be published. If this person said it, should never have been made, certainly should never have been made public, but imagine, this person, goes to the mikveh every Friday, and, whatever. He goes in and he's got this like huge Tasmanian devil, all the way down his back. People look at it like, oh no, don't worry. My rabbi said it's a red badge of courage. I should keep it.
That's funny.
Yeah, like I said, you gotta be careful, where information comes from. And
okay.
If you have something like that and you're gonna go there and everyone's gonna see it, I would get rid of it.
Okay. Next point of question. Yeah. When Moses' wife Zipporah, she had told, right, when she slapped the foreskin on the ground, said, "A bloody God you serve." Right. Mm-hmm. Give us a little insight on that story, and because Christianity, of course, who really is against anything, well, most things in the law, would certainly have an issue with circumcision, especially for those who are not circumcised, for the most obvious reasons. Mm-hmm. And that's where the whole self-mutilation comes from. That God would not want us to mutilate our bodies, right? Right. And so, using that context of the scriptures, could you give us a little bit of insight on why she said that, what the culture was, and why it's not bloody?
I would, I'm so glad I get all the easy questions.
Hey, this is controversial issues.
That's it.
I don't know if you got the memo, but I'm letting you know now.
Okay, good. So now the Talmud actually tells us, explains, this whole story, because it doesn't make a whole lot of sense, because when Moshe goes, he's going back to Egypt. So what does he do? He stops off by an inn. Now the Talmud says that he stops off at an inn and he starts like taking care of the arrangements, in this inn. And God says, like, you got to circumcise your son. How come you're taking care of, speaking to the clerk of the inn or whatever, and you're not doing that? So God sent an angel, to basically, kill him, and basically it was like half swallowed, or whatever the case was. And Zipporah understood that it was because they didn't circumcise their son, and she takes out a flint rock and circumcises him, and Moshe gets saved. Now that whole story, is pretty wild, because if Moshe Rabbeinu was supposed to be the savior of the Jewish people and he's supposed to go to Egypt, you can't bring an angel and swallow him up and kill him, right? And what in the world was he thinking? Also, just to make it more controversial, what in the world was he thinking about? Taking care of all their needs at the end before he circumcised his son. That's what he should have done first. So Moshe Rabbeinu was afraid that if he would have circumcised him before he left, it would have been considered a danger to his son by traveling. And as we know from Abraham, third day of travel is considered the most dangerous. So he felt that if you're going in the desert, it's a dangerous situation. So I'll wait till I get settled, and then I will do it. But obviously God thought otherwise. So Zipporah understood that this was the reason. She cuts off the foreskin, throws it to the ground, and says, this is what you caused, by it. Now, there's another question also, and that is that since a woman can't do circumcision, right? It's physiologically impossible. So someone who's not, let's say in the Parsha, is not, part of the mitzvah at all, can't do it, right? A non-Jew cannot do circumcision, right? If a non-Jew does circumcision on a Jew, that's not valid, because they don't have an obligation not that we hate non-Jews, right? No offense to any non-Jews listening. It has to do with whether they are part of the mitzvah or not.
So just
right?
real quickly, you said something that made me think. So, but can a non-Jew, can a goyim, can they be circumcised? I mean,
they can if they want. They don't have
right.
the mitzvah to.
Okay.
The only
okay.
question,
okay.
the only question by a non-Jew, and there is a whatever. There's a major question is what about the Arabs? What about the Bnei Keturah? The children of Keturah, who Keturah was Hagar, right, who was married to Abraham. So the whole question about them, do they have an obligation to, there's the whole question, do they have an obligation in circumcision or not? So the whole, like I said, there's a whole big discussion. It comes out that when Sancheriv, that evil king, mixed up all the nations, so we don't know who anybody is today, even though the Arabs claim they're from Ishmael, whatever, we're not, that line sort of been, destroyed because of Sancheriv, so we don't know who anybody is. So they would be the only ones that would seemingly have an obligation, but it wouldn't be exactly the same thing, as a Jew, because by a Jew, yeah, you take off the foreskin, but then it has to be pushed down, the top has to be revealed, and there's the whole thing which we'll probably get into about sucking the blood out, as well. So, before I guess we get into all that, so Zipporah says, yeah, you were causing, you're the blood over here, so to speak, because of what, because of exactly what, what you did. Now, people can twist that into a pretzel. Simple explanation, without even, delving that far is, well, you almost died. You almost died because you didn't circumcise him first. Now, Moshe Rabbeinu had a good reason why not to. It was considered, certainly considered dangerous. You're not going to take, an 8-day-old baby, or whatever the case is, on a caravan, going through the desert, right after major surgery. That wouldn't make, a whole lot of sense. But, if God is God and he says this is what you should have done, isn't that considered a little bit a lack of faith? And she said, it should have definitely, be done. And you caused, you're the one, you're the one who's the, you're the one who's the cause. Now, if a non-Jew, like any other mitzvah non-Jew wants to do, if they want to do circumcision, they'll certainly get credit for it, and they'll certainly get the mitzvah obligation. There's no, there's absolutely no obligation unless they convert. If they convert, so then they have to go through it. If they've already been circumcised, so just deal with this for a second. If they've already been circumcised, so what do they do if they want to convert? So there's nothing else to take off. So what they do is they draw blood. They do what they call hatafat dam brit, meaning that they take off a little bit of blood, and and then they convert. They do it right before they go into the mikvah, and it doesn't need any time to heal, and then they just go in, and that's it. Unless it gets more, unless it's more complicated than that, then you have to wait for it to heal, and it's done later, whatever.
Okay, before I forget, you just brought to my mind a major controversy.
All right, I'm sitting down. Go ahead.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Yeah, if you got a seatbelt, that's what I want to know.
I hope so.
Yeah. Okay. So I've heard this claim several times, and the first time I was actually amazed by it, but by the second time I was actually able to defend it. But I need it spoken from you, who knows this way more intimately than I ever could, probably. There's a practice that happens where nowadays, whenever a newborn 8-day circumcision happens, and okay, all you viewers out there, if you've never heard of this, don't freak out until after you hear the answer. And then if you're still freaking out, then you might not have understood it. Let me just put it that way. Okay, so the claim is this. It says, you've heard a lot of Herodias, really crazy, bizarre claims, that are X-rated from Christians towards Judaism, towards oral law. Like crazy ones we've already covered, like it's okay to sodomize a 3-year-old and all this other garbage that's totally nonsense. But this particular one deals with circumcision. On the circumcision, it says that the practice is that the rabbi or the moil who does the circumcision will suck blood like off of the circumcision and spit it out. And they make it, of course, they made it sound, when I read it from the Christian site, of course they don't tell you it's a Christian site when you're reading this stuff, but whenever I read it,
too obvious.
yeah, when I read it, they made it sound so like homosexual. It was like, it was almost so unbelievable, it was stupid. But at the first time I heard it was before I came out of idolatry myself. I was like, dang, no wonder people are staying away from Judaism. But then I started studying, and God forbid my eyes be blinded from studying. But hey, so this is where I want you to touch right now. Explain that whole process. Explain why back then it was a health thing. Now it's more, just as a ritual, whatever, and how fast it is. It's like they act like that it's like a 20-minute process to clean the blood off. I mean, are you serious? Anyway, go ahead.
So it's interesting. It is brought down. Shulchan Aruch, Code of Jewish Law, brings it down that once the foreskin is taken off, it's pushed down, and then it stopped the blood, right? They suck the blood out, and then spit it out. So I saw one of the later commentaries says that you have to understand one major point, and this goes back to the whole thing about oral tradition and how it works. And this commentator said like this, in the time of the Talmud, and what the rabbis bring down by, they'll bring down if a person has a certain sickness, you take this, you do that. You're like, it sounds like some crazy certain potions and other things. But as this rabbi points out, he says that when you look at these things, the rabbis understood medicine a whole lot better. They understood anatomy a whole lot better, 2,000 years ago than we understand today. So I'll get to the second point. One thing he points out is this was done to stop the blood, right? To stop the, to stop the blood. So he says they understood a lot better, than we do. So now people may say that's a third and long and that's a pun. They look at what's being done. Yeah, I understand what is being done. But if we take it as a basic premise, that they understood, a lot better, and this is what was done in order to stop it, and you nip it in the bud and the blood stops, after this is done, then that's it, right? They understood a whole lot better. Now he also brings down that when the person does it, when the moil does it, his mouth has to be clear, right? It has to be done in a hygienic situation, right? That's why the whole controversy in New York about this whole thing with, there were a few cases, there were a few cases of herpes, whatever that the baby got, or whatever the case is. Is it possible that something like that could happen? It's possible, right? But as Rabbi points out, you got to do everything in your power to make sure it's done in the proper way, so you don't have that issue. So you might say, this is disgusting. How could they do it? I'll give an example, which I always give, and people may say this is a crock also, but you can take it for what it's worth. When it comes to prayer, right? We'll answer this with a case in prayer. When it comes to prayer, most people say, why do I have to keep, if you're a Jew, why do I have to keep praying the same things over and over and over again? It's the same thing. Just a little bit different on Shabbos, a little bit different on the festivals. But why can't I have spontaneous prayer? And the answer is it's not true. You can have spontaneous prayer. But it was fixed, right? In the 5th century, it was fixed. So the rabbis that gave us the prayers that we say today, right? These people were so great. They were able to they had the power to do resurrection of the dead. They were able to bring people back to life. It's just that people in their generation weren't worthy of it, right? So they couldn't do it. But practically speaking, if the generation would have been worthy, they could have done it. So when it comes to this, so you're saying, okay, who cares? What does it do with prayer? If they're the ones that through divine inspiration, the lowest form of prophecy today, right? If they would tell you this is what you have to pray, 3 times a day, during the week, and this is what you have to say on Shabbos, etc. And they were able to bring back people from the dead. I would venture to say, I'm going to go on a limb here. If they would tell me that and they were able to bring people back from the dead, that's good enough for me. Right? Who am I to question, say, what are you, a wacko? Right? What are you, an idiot? What are you on TORAH Talk once a week? Like, come on. You really think?
Yeah.
You really think that that's what it is? That because they had that ability, we should worship the ground they walk on? I said, no, that's called idolatry. You don't worship them. But keep in mind, at that level where they're holding, there's no one holding that way today. You take all the greatest rabbis of this generation and previous generations. You want to go back to that, they would have the ability to bring people back from the dead? Hell no. Right? That's certainly not true. So if that's the case, we have no idea, what type of people we are dealing with. So we'll look on it 3,500 years later, right? Or, sorry, let's say, 2,500 years later. Oh, these rabbis, this, that. Could you bring people back from the dead? No. All right, so then keep your mouth shut. They understood, right, something that we have no idea, right? So they're telling you, yeah, this is something that has to be done, and this is going to stop the blood flow, and there could be a number of reasons why. I'm only talking physiological here, right? Biological, right? What goes on. So we keep it anyway. But it has to be done in a proper, sterile environment. Oh, this boy's a homosexual. Are you kidding me? And people will jump up and down and say, look, this is what it is. This is what it represents. Well, they totally missed the boat. And, as this great rabbi, about 100 years ago brings down, he says, yeah, it has to be done, in the right environment, and it's gotta be sterile and all, and all that. So you don't have these other, possible, problems. But, one thing he made clear, and that is, when it comes to what the rabbis tell us, do not take what they say as a grain of salt. Don't push it away and say, oh, I know better. I'm 2,000 years later. I'm much more developed. I'm much more this. Forget about it. They understood things 10 times better than we'll understand in 100 lifetimes.
Okay. It was like one of those abrupt stops I wasn't expecting. Okay. Jason Akers, Green Acres Pest Controls, by the way, he said, to play the devil's advocate, the doctors revive the dead every day, and after they have clinically died. Hold on, let me do something. I can't hear myself. Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you loud and clear.
Good. Okay, so Jason, you're going to have to clarify what you meant by that, because I was just kind of...
No, so he's saying, I understood, he can tell me if I'm wrong, that, if someone's clinically dead, or let's say someone has a heart attack, they bring them back, right? So,
right.
So the question where the Torah says, the Torah says in Parsha Mishpatim that it says, Yirape, right? That you should surely heal, right? If someone gets injured, right, they have to be healed. So there, the Talmud brings down that a doctor is allowed to heal. Now the question is, what does he do? Now up until, recent times, a doctor certainly could only heal something that was external. Something that was internal, they couldn't heal. They couldn't see. They had no idea what they were. That's a
good point. Yeah.
Unless they open up the body, right? There was no possible way, to know, what was going on inside. So basically, it's brought down that only God can heal from the inside, right? In other words, what a doctor can do is only superficial, right? It's only on the outside. Today you might say it's different because they see what goes on, so they can, they can treat it. But keep in mind that even if, they'll give antibiotics, they'll give these other things, and, the patient gets sicker and sicker and then dies, right? So obviously something that should work, if it doesn't work, or whatever the case is, that means that person's time is up. So the only reason they're allowed to bring someone back from the dead, or, to heal, the question really is how they allowed to heal people. But we'll deal with this question, if someone is like clinically dead, and they bring them back. The most time someone's clinically dead, they don't bring them back. They come back on their own, right? They're not doing anything special to bring them back. They're in a coma, right? So you want to, you want to come out and say they're bringing people back. They're not doing anything to bring them back. They're, the person sitting there, they can't do anything. If it's somebody like someone has a heart attack and they do CPR, or the person's passed out and they do CPR and they save them, yeah. So you say, well, they're bringing them back. Well, keep in mind, if God didn't want them to come back, the person dies.
That's kind of what I was thinking too. I mean, if a person comes back to life, it's because Hashem revived them for whatever reason.
Right, but when it comes to an out of body experience, which everybody says the same thing, they see their life flash before them. The body hovers over the soul, hovers over the body. In all that, they see this great light. Every Jew, non-Jew, they see the same thing. Some people don't actually come back to the body; they actually die. But the ones that do come back to their body, medicine cannot explain why. All of a sudden they come back to life. And it has nothing to do, and every doctor, if they're honest, every doctor will say there's no reason why this should happen. This person should be dead. Right? Why did they come back? There's only one reason, because God slapped the soul back into the body.
Right. That makes sense.
I mean, if that was his intention, that is, I think that's the answer. If it's not, so you can, you can re-paraphrase
right.
the question. I think that's what he meant. But there's a general question, about doctors healing. How are doctors allowed to heal anyway? You get these people say, well, we're not going to doctors, right? You have these ultra people will say, my kid's sick, I'm going to let God heal him. Well, there's also a 614th commandment, don't be stupid, right? There's a 615th commandment, don't be a moron. If the kid's sick, take him to a doctor.
Yeah, right.
Unless, as the Vilna Gaon says, unless you rely on God 100% for everything that you do. In other words, you don't work, you don't put any effort in it, God's going to take care of you. There are some people out there, certainly not the majority, and certainly very few in number. But everybody else, which is just about everybody, which is about everybody else, and that is that they have to put their best foot forward. And if you get sick, you got to go to, you have to go to the doctor. That's just the way it works. And, the Talmud says, Tov shebarofim legehenim. The best of doctors go to hell. That's very comforting. That's very comforting. So the commentaries explain what does that mean. It means one explanation is that doctors think they are God. And they are playing God's role, and they have the ability to heal, and it has nothing to do with God, and they're being conceited. There was a story. I was telling an interesting story. There was a story with an Israeli goes to a doctor. His daughter's very sick. Goes to this expert, and this expert looks at the case, and he says, "Yeah, I can help you," and whatever. So he's going to go with this doctor, and the father of the daughter, who was an Orthodox Jew, says to the doctor, who was secular, he says, Bezrat Hashem, with the help of God, everything will be good. So his doctor says, what do you mean Bezrat Hashem? I'm the doctor here. I'm the one calling the shots. Without me, your child dies. And this guy says, you take that back. You conceded, whatever. You take that back. How dare you say such a thing? He goes, I'm not going to take that back. He goes, fine. I'm, not a chance. I'm not coming to you. He says, fine, don't come to me. Your daughter's going to die. You don't have to come to me. Fine. Your daughter's going to die. So what happened? This guy was at a convention, a doctor's convention, whatever it was. He had to give this major presentation. And in the middle of this major presentation, hundreds of people there. Imagine, he's up there with the slideshow. All of a sudden, you know what they say, when you got to go, you got to go. So he had to run out in the middle of this presentation because, bodily functions called him. So what happened? This guy was totally embarrassed. He calls back after this conference. He calls back this guy and he says, don't worry, I'll take care of it. I'm so sorry. I take back everything that I said. So this guy asked him, he said, what happened? So he said, I claim that I'm in charge. I'm in charge of this, I'm the one calling the shots. You know what? I can't even control my own body.
That's funny.
Yeah. I couldn't even control my own body. And because of that, I was totally humbled and I understood what your point was.
That's good. Okay, hey, I'm going to completely derail you, and this is not, I don't typically do this. As far as
you do it all the time.
No. As far as take it off topic from the show topic, I try to stick to the topic. All right. But there's a question down here that needs to be addressed also. I don't know. I can't read the name of the character, but because it's like a bunch of letters, just no vowels. But it says, as a Noahide, should I go out? And this is completely off the topic, so don't stay in it long. Just maybe a minute or so. As a Noahide, should I go out and look for Christians to convert to be Noahides, or should I leave it to the experts, meaning the rabbis?
Yeah. So when it comes to a Noahide, a Noahide's going to come to a Jew and pull on the tzitzit and says, I want to learn what the Torah says that I should do.
Right.
The question is, should that Jew, or even a Noahide, even if he doesn't convert, should I go out to him? Should I try and proselytize or give over information where I'm trying to bring them closer to their own mitzvahs? So my Rebbe has a very long response in that, and he says it's not brought down according to early commentators, later commentators, not brought down anywhere where we have an obligation to bring a non-Jew closer to their mitzvahs. The difference is if they come to you. So if they come to you and they want to learn, so there's a mitzvah to help them. Do I have an obligation to try and take someone out of, idolatry? If it, I have no obligation, for a non-Jew to do that. There is an obligation for a Jew to look out for his, for another Jew and certainly try and help them along the path or give them information or whatever, because all Jews are connected, right? The Talmud says, Kol Yisrael Arevim Zeh Lezeh, all Jews are responsible one for another. So if one Jew doesn't keep Shabbos, it affects everybody. If one Jew doesn't, keep kosher, it affects everybody. They say, what about the non-Jews? Non-Jews shouldn't be helped. Of course they should be helped.
Right.
Right. The question is it my responsibility, to go out there, and get on my soapbox and do that? So people say, well, don't you give classes to Noahides? Yeah. Classes I do give to Noahides, and I put it out there for people wanting information. But I'm not out there on the streets and putting out flyers.
Okay,
maybe
now...
Maybe on Facebook it's the same thing, but... I'm not out there, door to door, banging, and having these revivals and going into churches and trying to bring people out. That's only if there are Jews in there, but if they're non-Jews and they want to do that, that's their choice, unless they, they have questions and they need a forum to get those questions answered, then they should be answered. Otherwise there shouldn't be any obligation to go out there and do it.
Okay, now you're using the term obligation. What about, is it forbidden like for me, for example, people don't ask me questions ever, because they know what kind of answer they're going to get. So on a regular basis, I post things on Facebook, hoping like I'm fishing. You know what I'm saying? And just
that's not proselytization. You're just giving over information.
Right. So it's not forbidden for me to do what I do.
No.
Okay.
No, like I asked my Rebbe, am I allowed to advertise, for giving classes, for converts, because we're not allowed to proselytize, right? We're not looking for we're not looking for converts. So it's don't worry about it. What you do is nothing. I'm like, not exactly nothing. No, you're not converting. He's like, you're not converting anybody.
That's funny.
So I said, well, that's true. I'm not. He said, you're just offering the service for people to get information if they want it.
Yeah.
So most people don't want it, so that's fine.
Right.
But the people that do that are interested. You're just offering them a service for that. So that's not proselytization. There is a question, just while we're on this topic for a second. There is a question, what if someone's going to go through a Reform or Conservative conversion, right? Do I have an obligation to try and convince them not to? Because they're going to go down a wrong path. It's going to be a waste of time, right? It's not going to be accepted, and, it's not true and all these other things, right, which I'm not going to go into now. But, do I have an obligation to do that? So I remember I asked my Rebbe about it. He said, if you're already in contact with somebody, and they're thinking about going down this path or whatever, that's one thing. But you looking for people going down that path, trying to convince them, that's something else, right? You don't have an obligation. There's no, it's basically forbidden to do that. If they want to go in that direction, that's their choice.
Wait.
If they come to you and ask you about it, that's something else.
Okay, you said they don't have an obligation, but then you said it's basically forbidden for them to do that. Or did I misunderstand you?
If they want to convert in a bogus way, they have free choice to do it. I'm not saying it's permitted to do that.
Right.
Right. You want to be a wishy-washy bogus Jew? Go ahead.
Right.
I got a great video on that. Why Reform and Conservative conversions are bogus. You want to do that. There is plenty of reason why they are. Is it my obligation, to stop someone who's, if I, should I bomb the conservative mikvah? that they're going to go in and say, oh, these rabbis are fanatics. Boom! Like I don't have an obligation to do that. They call me Taliban. They call me all kinds of things. But if they want to go in that direction,
that's funny.
That is their choice. If they come to me or they text me and they say, should I do this? I was just on a show the other night, and I got exactly this question. If someone's in a community and there's only Reform and Conservative, synagogue, should I go there at least until I move or whatever? And I said, absolutely not, because that makes my life more difficult, because then I have to re-squeegee your brain about what the Torah actually is. It's not just a scrapbook. It's not just, well, if I feel like doing it, fine. If not, and I always say there are plenty of wishy-washy people, mediocre Jews, so to speak, if that, in my own family. We don't need any more. Trust me.
Right.
We got our own problems. You want to come into the fold, either you're going to do it right or don't bother.
That's funny. Wow. Okay, we got about 10 minutes left. The phone lines are open. I'm going to, just for good, I'm going to put the number back on screen again, just for everybody to see. Call in and just say hi. Tell me something. It'd be a good time to test the phone lines, because I actually after Sunday, we had about 3 shows in a row. I was having Skype issues. So far, by the way, tonight, Rabbi, you have had, this has been a nicely smooth, no problems, no garbled, speaking. It's all sounded really, well, of course, it sounds crazy, but it's not garbled. So
that's
it's
what
actually,
this topic is. That's the whole point. That's
so
why people love
actually,
it.
all the reconfiguring I did before we started tonight, actually, it looks like it fixed things. So I would like to have somebody call in, though. Please don't make me call myself. I will if I have to. 855-95-BIBLE. That's 855-95.
All 3 of you. Me, myself, and I, we're all going to call in. We're going to jam up the line.
Hey, by the way, you guys need to check out, just for grins, Rabbi Coffman was on Tamar Yona's show, Israel News Talk Radio. Tamar is she's just a fun cat to listen to. She really is. She's just full of life, full of just questions, full of information, and it's really cool. So Rabbi had a show with her, I believe, yesterday, the day before. So go to that website, Israel News Talk Radio, INTR.com. Is it INTR.com, or do you have to spell it out?
You have to spell it out, I think.
Okay, there we go. Thank you, phone caller. Mwah. Okay, now we get to see if the caller can actually...
It's my pizza delivery!
Now we get to see if the caller can actually hear you and if you can hear the caller. Caller, welcome to the show. Please tell us your name, where you're calling from.
Are you talking to me?
I sure am. Who do we have on the phone?
Oh, okay. Hi, my name is Cindy.
Hi, Cindy. Where are you from?
I'm from Beechwood, Ohio.
Gotcha, Cindy. Okay, very good. Rabbi, can you hear Cindy?
I'm calling with
I can hear loud and clear.
A question for Rabbi.
Wonderful.
The question is, what is the relationship between the blood of circumcision and the blood of the Pesach Korban?
Rabbi, do you understand the question?
Heard the question, yeah.
Do you understand the question?
I understood the question.
Hey, I got to make sure it's my job. It's what I do.
Wait a minute, can I do this? Yeah, I'm still good. I haven't drank enough yet.
Okay, Cindy, I love these deep questions because it forces my brain to stretch, and it hurts sometimes, but I need to do that. So, Cindy from Ohio, bless your heart. Thank you for calling in. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Hey,
Bye-bye.
you're very welcome. Take care. Shalom, shalom. All right, Rabbi,
Come
take
on,
it away.
Three cups of scotch. You should be good by now. Anyway,
more like 3 sips.
The connection, the connection is interesting because you look at the Paschal offering, which everything's about Passover and cleaning and ammonia, and having your house smell good. But it, the last thing the Jews had to do in order to get out of Egypt was, take their lamb, their God, and kill it in front of them and put the blood on the doorpost, right? And then God passed over. He passed over. And he killed the firstborn. So imagine, Egypt today would be modern day India, right? So, you take a whole bunch of cows, say, all right, let's make some burgers. We're going to make some shish kebab. We're going to have a good time. The Indians are going to sit there like, what are you doing with this cow? I'm like, well, I go cow tipping, but I haven't had enough to drink yet. So like, I don't know. It's a Midwestern thing. I guess you have to enjoy it while you're, while you're plastered because, cows sleep standing up. So, you push them over, they can't get up. Anyway, I don't know. So imagine, like, you do this in downtown, you're in Bombay. Say, okay, you bring all these people, say, go ahead, I'm going to kill your God in front of them. Well, you're probably not going to make it out alive if you do that. Like, come on, I just want a burger. Right? I want a steak. So what happens? So God said, you want to get out of Egypt? This is the last thing you have to do. This is the thing that you have to show 100% self-sacrifice in order to get out, right? You saw all the miracles. You saw Egypt totally decimated. 80% of the Jewish people don't get out, right? They die in the plague of darkness, right? According to some, it's about 7-8 million people that don't make it out. But Moshe tells the people, if you don't do it, you don't get out, right? It's self-sacrifice. Now, if you look at circumcision, I mean, people think you got to be absolutely out of your mind. 8 days. What are you doing in 8 days? You have to draw blood. That's why the whole question, what about a hemophiliac? What about if a kid's a hemophiliac? You draw blood, the kid could die. I mean, the kid will die because it can't coagulate, right? The blood won't coagulate. So the question is, what happens if you do it by laser? If you do it by laser, it definitely is going to rip off the foreskin. That's fine. It's not going to draw blood. That's also good.
Right.
The only question is, it doesn't cut, right? According to the Rambam, according to others, you have to cut the foreskin. You take it off. That is what the goal is. You take it off, but it doesn't cut it. So you fulfill one obligation you can't do, right? You can't actually cut it because they may die. In either case, it's something that is done with great self-sacrifice because this is a major operation that this child is going to have to go through. And, you can only do it where the kid's not yellow because the kid has to be healthy enough, and strong enough, to go through it. And, just like the Paschal offering that has to be, that was given over, that the sheep was killed and the blood's put on the doorpost, that is 100% self-sacrifice because you're killing their God, right in front of them, and they can't do anything.
Right.
And people were terrified. And Moshe says, I don't care. This is what God said. This is what you have to do. You don't do it, so fine. Be my guest. You won't get out. Right? So
right,
circumcision is exactly that, is through self-sacrifice. And one of the main points of circumcision is you have to draw blood. So therefore, even a convert who converts and they've already had circumcision, right? If they've already had circumcision, well, there's nothing to do, right? I can't take it off again. It's already gone. So therefore, you have to draw blood. That is the point. Okay, it doesn't hurt. It's a little bit of a prick and fine. And then you go to the mikveh and everything's good, but you still have to draw blood. That is the point. You have to show, self-sacrifice. Again, even if it doesn't really hurt that much or whatever. But imagine someone does it and they're much older. I know of a case happened a number of months ago that someone converted and they went to a rabbinical court, and the father, they checked and they missed something. So when the whole family reconverted here, the problem with the conversion. So when they reconverted here and they were checked before they went into the mikveh, so everyone was good except for the father. They found there was something there, whatever. So they had to. So the whole family was Jewish except for him, and they had to go do it again. This person was was out for 2 weeks, and he was in his mid-30s and had to have it redone. So that's why I'm always fond of saying you have to go to a proper rabbinical court to make sure things are done right. Where this caused all kinds of issues. I mean, I told this guy's wife, I'm like, well, you're married to a non-Jew now. You don't, get rid of him. You wanted to be married, you want to be married to a non-Jew? I don't think so. So, there's a whole question with their dishes now because, he's not Jewish, whatever, the whole bunch of issues. So, again, it might sound fanatical and say, if I don't do it 100%, and, what's the matter with reforming conversion? Do it right. Even within an Orthodox rabbinical court, this was something that they missed. I don't know how they missed it, but this was something that they missed, caused all kinds of problems. So why are you going to do something that's half-baked? And this is what you're going to get. You're going to get something that is half-baked and potentially could cause problems later.
Wow. Okay, this will be our closing thing we're going to deal with, okay? It's not about circumcision, but it is about self-mutilation. Whenever you have somebody who is maybe dealing with psychological stress, And you've heard of people who cut themselves, or because they're
Right.
just whether they're just freaking out or whether they're doing it to punish themselves, whatever the case may be. What does Torah state versus the Jew and the Goy? Because obviously there are different laws for, like, for example, a Goy doesn't have to be circumcised, but a Jew does.
Right.
Right. So.
Right.
So if you cover that.
Self-mutilation,
Yes.
a non-Jew. Let's keep clear. A non-Jew has to keep anything that's universal, right? Anything that makes sense to the human mind.
So even
self-mutilation,
because that would make sense to me. For sure.
Self-mutilation is something that, who's going to do self-mutilation unless someone is, someone's looking for attention or someone's, psychologically unstable, right? So self-mutilation, 100%, even for a non-Jew, should be forbidden, right? There's no, self-mutilation, doesn't necessarily mean, as you mentioned, doesn't just mean like, someone is, taking needles and doing all kinds of things to their body, whatever. Self-mutilation, can also mean, let's say for women, doing body piercing, right? Not just, earrings are fine, if they want to wear earrings, but, basically you put, you pierce anything else, your nose, your tongue. I had a guy once who pierced his tongue, and whatever, he took out the ring, had a ring in his tongue. He took it out, and he said, Rabbi, when I got it done, every time I drank something hot, like burned it burned it all the senses, whatever. I'm like, yeah. I go, there's a 614th commandment. Don't be an idiot. You deserved it. You want to do that. That's insane. But any other type of body piercing, and people do it all over. I don't know if there's any part of the body that's not done, but that would be forbidden, right? For you want to tell me, a lot of people do it. There are women that, the body pierce, in many places. So it doesn't matter what people do. The question is, is that forbidden or not? So that would be something, certainly for a Jew, it's forbidden. For a non-Jew, that should be universal. Why in the world would someone, in your case, it's very easy. In your case, you want to self-mutilate the body. You want to, take a knife, take a, whatever, and, start, cutting and drawing blood and all this and all that. Yeah, that should definitely be forbidden. Question would be, what about, body piercing? Body piercing should be the same thing, right? Except for earrings. Earrings for a woman, not a problem. But, you put earrings just about anywhere else. That's the same thing. It should be forbidden for a Jew or for a non-Jew.
Okay, Rabbi, let's close it up. Before we leave, I need you to tell, just in case we have some new viewers out there, tell them where they can find you, tell them what you're doing. I'll tell them what you're doing. For those people out there who have even thought about, even if you're only curious about what conversion would mean, right? Let's say that you left idolatry and you're happy being a Noahide, but you're just curious. What does it mean? What would I need to do to be able to convert to Judaism? This guy's the one you want to talk to. He works with many people on a remote basis, and he can definitely work with you regardless of what stage you're in. So just send him a Facebook. He's on Facebook. You can find orthodoxconversion.com as his website. But he literally works with conversion all the time. Probably the only rabbi I know who spends most of his time working with conversion. So even if you're not geographically fit for the match, he can guide you in the right direction. So you definitely want to find Rabbi on Facebook, send him a message, friend request, whatever. So hate mail, just don't send it here because I don't want it. So with all this,
same also.
Exactly. So Rabbi, it was a great show, man. You did a great job as usual, and it's always a pleasure to see you and your smiling face and your crazy mind. I love it, man. That's what we're here for. Shalom, everybody. It's good to see you guys. Hey, thank you all for your support, not just for your Facebook likes and for your YouTube subscriptions, but also there's a handful of people out there who've been donating and helping me along because this is a single income blow, and it's like things are changing around here. Just to give you, Rabbi, too, some insight too. Sometime in the next 3 months or so, I may be having to relocate because I may have most of the viewers who have been following along knew about our adopted mother who owned the place. She died, and now I'm working with her sons and daughters on staying here as long as we can until they sell the place. So when that time comes, I'm going to have to relocate We're trying to work it out so that we can actually buy the place. I don't know what that means, but that's what we're going to try to do so we can keep things going nonstop. Because now that we're back, I don't want to stop. I want to keep this thing just going, get as many shows out as we can with this crazy rabbi and all these other ones that are coming on. And so keep us in your prayers that Hashem will keep the doors open for Tanakh Talk as long as we can. And
yeah.
Amen.
You guys do a great job. You do a great job. No question about that. So anything that can be done to keep it going, that's tremendous.
Thank you, Rabbi. Thank you all too for tuning in and for your financial support, your love, your care, and your smiles, man. Love you guys. See you next time. Same time, same place with this crazy dude. Love you, Rabbi Coffman.
See you.
Hey, take care, y'all. Shalom, shalom.
Shalom, shalom, everybody.